Rocky, it is a pleasure to visit with you today and talk about some cattle marketing. So, before we get started, would you mind introducing yourself and, how you are involved with Allied Genetic Resources?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having us on. I'm excited to be a part of this. But my name's Rocky Forseth. I work for both Allied Genetic Resources and Superior Livestock. I've been, I think I've been with Allied since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And kind of my charge in the Allied business is to add value to feeder cattle that come through our system that are in essence influenced by Allied genetics. And I do most of that through our platforms at Superior Livestock.
So, with that, do you want to go into a little bit more detail about how you are directly working with ranchers with your role?
Yeah, so let's see. You probably have heard from Marty and Corey and Jared, the sale management team, and Leoma and Heidi on kind of the data management team and the geneticists, Dr. Sachi and Dr. Tate. Those guys, in essence, most of the time interface with predominantly seed stock producers. Their main contact is a seed stock producer that's more than likely an owner in our business. And those guys work on creating a product and creating a robust product at that, right? And then in most cases that's genetics and oftentimes that's Sim Angus genetics. My job is, generally speaking, working with commercial operators who are also consumers of those genetics, but my job is to add value to the feeder cattle that they've created. They took a product from the other side of the Allied business, and they're a consumer of those genetics. They're bull buyers, right? And we believe that our cattle have a difference in the marketplace because we know more about those genetics. We've precision mated them in a lot of situations. We've created those cattle with a tremendous amount of data, and we've created a tremendous amount of value, and it's my job to try to capture that value and return it back to the rancher.
Awesome. You mentioned part of that process is with your role at Superior and that video auction platform. Would you mind explaining a little bit more about how that platform works for the cow-calf producer and what that looks like?
Yeah, so first of all, with the Allied team, there's 6 of us. Clint Berry manages, kind of heads up our team. Jake Fettis, Logan Butcher, myself, Kylie DeVoe, AJ Munger, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. But that team, we'll do about 38,000, just shy of 40,000 head this year. And the best way I can describe what we do is to just walk through that. A commercial rancher usually comes to us in some form or fashion of a referral, whether that's somebody that we've done work with in the past, a seed stock producer that's in the Allied business, and comes to us from that in terms of, comes to us as a referral from typically one of those two places. I was actually on a place this morning. They got my name off the website. So a few different ways that they get in contact with us. And once that happens, we sit down and talk some details about kind of what the cattle are from a management and a process standpoint, how and when they'd like to sell them, when we need to deliver them, what the logistics of delivery day look like, and then it's our job to go out and search and find those buyers, and we'll use our platforms, whether that's a video sale, the country page, and sometimes even a private treaty type transaction. We'll use our platforms through Superior to find the right home for those cattle.
So when you think about what producers are benefiting from forward contracting, which is what you're helping them with, what types of producers are those?
Yeah, so I almost stopped you there in the last question and mentioned that we should talk about forward contracting. Mid-July, as we're talking about this right now, we're in the heat of that kind of forward contracting season. In other words, most of the cattle I'm selling today, last week, and next week are all going to be, we'll take delivery on those sometime after September 15th, but probably before December 1st, right? And so we should stop and discuss forward contracting for just a minute. The grain farmers in the room would obviously understand that forward contracting wheat has a lot of advantages just from a price insulation standpoint, or just, we like the market today, we don't know what it's going to be like once we get it in the bin. It's really the same idea on the cattle side. A couple of things need to be done. We kind of need to know where they're going to be from a weight standpoint. We kind of need to know where we're going to be from a head count standpoint, and just the type and kind. And so if we can nail those things down, which oftentimes happens just based on history, right? Like, we know that in north central Montana, where I'm at, oftentimes most ranchers here are going to wean somewhere between 550 and 650 pounds, depending on when they calve. And so if we can understand that and take that particular ranch's historical data and forecast out and say, yeah, we're probably going to be 600 this year on the second week of October. Now we have the ability to say we're pretty close. We kind of understand where we're going to be in terms of the product we're going to deliver. And so let's take advantage of the seasonal high, which typically is, I always say between Memorial Day and Labor Day is our kind of marketing season for fall delivery cattle. So if they deliver in October, this is my personal preference, but if they deliver in October, we like to have them sold in June or July. And if they deliver in November, we can push that out into August on the November delivery type cattle. So what are we doing? Well, we're taking advantage of that seasonal high in the marketplace throughout the summer, and we're able to keep our management relatively the same. So we don't have to load the cattle up and haul them to town, and we're able to say we like the market today on July 18th, and we're going to take advantage of that market, but we're not able to handle those cattle until the second week in October. And that's the real advantage of forward contracting. And so the next piece of that, or the next half to your question, is who can take advantage of that, right? Well, the system works the best in load lots. So when I say load lots, I mean somewhere between 50 and 65,000 pounds, depending on kind of some trucking regulations and what can go down the road safely and legally. But we really need 50,000 pounds of same sex, same type, similar weight cattle. And so that's, generally speaking, if there's 100, 500 pounders, that's, and those, we kind of need those cattle to be similar in terms of type and kind, and those cattle have to be pretty even. And why do we do it that way? Why is it load lots? Well, let's talk about the buyer for a minute, or the person that's going to take delivery on those cattle. Most pens and feed yards are set up to be 1 or 2 load pens. Most guys want to get a job done, and managing those cattle down chain becomes easier when they're put together from a management standpoint, when they're quite similar. And so I think that's the value, and the person that can put that together typically is a mid-sized operator from a ranching standpoint. That being said, I do handle several sets of cattle that are what I call marketing alliances. I do a couple around Montana, one in Colorado, and Clint does one actually in Indiana and Illinois. And those are multiple producers that have gotten together with very similar mindsets and very similar kind of vaccine schedules, and they buy real similar genetics. And those guys get together and market their cattle as one entity. And so, for example, like a marketing alliance, they all calve, within 30 days of one another is a generally speaking a start date, and they all ship about the same time. They all use the same vaccine schedules, similar mineral programs. Those are really nice candidates to come together. And as long as the people can stick together and be together, that's a really nice marketing group. And we've had a fair bit of success doing that.
So, Rocky, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain that in more detail and how it can work for multiple producers who are able to work together and maybe producers who are working as individuals to market those calves. What is the primary advantage, though, of having you or someone else on kind of that allied team in there and helping that producer?
First of all, there's 400 representatives in Superior alone, let alone some of the other market systems, and I'm sure that several of those guys do a great job. But specific to our business and specific to what Allied does, I don't know how to say this probably the politically correct way, but I don't know anybody that would know more about the cattle than we do. Our team is at these bull sales. Our team helps with literally every level. Leoma helps with the data. Dr. Sachi and Dr. Tate help with physically precision mating those cattle, and we see those bulls on development. The sale management team obviously helps through the entire process, and I'm around a lot of those customers, and so as a result, we know a tremendous amount about these genetics, and our reputation on the other side of the business. Remember, we would have kind of two sets of customers, both the commercial rancher, but then there's several cattle feeders, feedlot operators that work with us and ask us to help them fill their yards. And those folks, those cattle feeders and feedlot operators, they've come to us and they've come to expect a different type of product. And to us, that product is what I call allied influenced, or one that's a heavy consumer of our genetics, right? And so they've come to expect a pretty high quality, pretty uniform set of cattle that more often than not is Sim Angus influenced, and we've become quite good at sourcing those out of our system and delivering a pretty high quality product. And that's, in my mind, that's what we do different than everybody else, right? Like, we probably sell more Sim Angus allied sired feeder cattle than any other team, but it's because we know more about Sim Angus allied sired feeder cattle than anybody else.
Thank you for that. So, Rocky, when you think about forward contracting and what you're doing and working with producers, what would you say is the biggest misconception there is about the line of service you're in?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of those, and probably the first or the biggest one is I just don't know what my calves are going to weigh, and that's a tough one, especially we're kind of right smack dab in the middle of a pretty widespread drought along the Rocky Mountain front where I live, and a lot of these guys say I don't know if they're going to be 50 pounds light, and then oftentimes when these drier years, calves come in heavy, and that's a hard one to gauge when it's a different year. Now, what I usually tell people is, hey, if you take the last 10 years of weight at shipping time, or whether sometimes that's weaning weight, sometimes that's market weight, whatever that is, you take 10 years, throw out the heaviest one and lightest one, and average the other 8. More often than not, you're going to hit that. But all of that to say, this is the reason we have a slide. A slide's a tough one because at the sale barn, we weigh the cattle and then we sell them. In our system, we're selling the cattle and then we're weighing them. And so that's one of the real challenges of what we do, but that's also the reason we have a slide. And that's to keep weight that's different from the base weight fair for everybody. That's what a slide's purpose is. And people want to get, sometimes that can be intimidating, but the truth is it's to account for weight that's different from the base weight, whether that's up, down, or whether it's close or far. That's why we have a slide. A cattle feeder buys a 650-pound calf in July and takes delivery on that calf in October, and he's 70 pounds heavier than what he anticipated. He could have bought those pounds at his cost of gain, which right now might be $1, and instead he paid north of $3.50 for those. And that's why a slide exists, because it's not fair to the buyer and the seller. He needs to be able to slide that price down to take into account that different weight. Not a big deal. We calculate slides on a daily basis. Every day in October, literally every day in October, I calculate a slide, oftentimes more than once. And so it's in my mind, a powerful tool in the beef business, but it can be one that's intimidating. And not knowing what the cattle weigh oftentimes makes folks miss out on what I would call a seasonal high because of that unknown, when in reality they can use that forward contracting tool to take advantage of that.
Rocky, you've really outlined and explained a lot specific to forward contracting and these video sales and exactly the service that you are providing to that cow-calf producer. But still, as a producer myself, sometimes I feel that cattle marketing can be overwhelming. I mean, that's the big payday for the year. So what advice do you have to help cow-calf producers simplify marketing, not be overwhelmed by it, and find that option that best works for their operation?
Yeah, so to me there's a couple of pieces. And the first thing I would say is that the ranchers that I know, the ranchers that I work with are, in general, exceptional managers, right? They're really good at managing cattle. They're really good at managing forages and making sure that things get done to secure 12 months of feed for their cattle and do the things that need to be done on the ranch because they're doing it every day. We're cattle marketers. That's what we do, and we do it every day. We handle the stress of calling 40 different feedlot operators and cattle buyers to see if they might be interested in your cattle. We handle that stress. We handle that added time commitment because that's what we do. And so from a overwhelming standpoint, I understand how that could be overwhelming, but generally speaking, people that are involved in this business are extroverted, as you might imagine, and we're good at calling those people. We're good at sort of describing what the cattle are, and if we manage what we can deliver and sell what we deliver, and then deliver what we sold. I know that sounds funny, but it's really what we're trying to do here. We can take a lot of that stress out. Part of the reason you might hire a professional is the same reason that I hire a tax professional, because taxes stress me out. But when I put the right person in place to handle that for me, that's a lot less stressful event. And so I think that's probably the most important piece, is you should hire somebody that makes you comfortable in terms of managing that stress level. And some people require more because they know less about that part of the system. Some people know quite a bit about kind of what goes on down chain, and they don't need as much professional help. But all that to say, you should pair yourself with somebody who makes you more comfortable in that regard. So the other part of that I feel like is worth mentioning is this idea that marketing in the summertime, and understand that we're using like a normal spring calving outfit that might sell their calves in the fall. And so marketing in the summertime, way out in front of what we're going to have to deliver, can be overwhelming in and of itself, but the whole process can be overwhelming because you're taking in some cases, 100% of your income in 45 to 60 seconds. And I understand how that can be extremely overwhelming and nerve-wracking. But if you put a team on your side that understands and is in that business every day, they're the ones that need to saddle that stress. I mean, I'm extraordinarily nervous on video sale weeks because I'm handling a lot of that stress, hopefully for my customers. Make no mistake, in this market today, a lot of my customers aren't really that stressed because it's going to be okay kind of no matter what happens. But it's my job to handle that stress for my customer. At least that's the way that I view it. And so if you put a team, if you're a rancher and this part of the business overwhelms you, I guess that my encouragement would be to put a team together or a group together that can go to work for you and provide a lot less stress when it comes to marketing. Because if we're in that every day and we understand all the pieces and parts that go into this, we can make that event a lot easier on the cow-calf operator, feedlot operator, background, or whoever that might be.
Well, and all of that makes sense, and that's a similar analogy that Leoma gave too when she was talking about the value of having someone else kind of act as that auditor or third party with your cattle data to make sure that, you know, you're not missing anything, just like our tax professionals know more of the loopholes than we do, etc. And you're the expert, and you're able to take some of that stress and make sure nothing's getting missed, things are being done right. So that absolutely makes sense, Rocky. Now, as we kind of wrap up our conversation today, if there is one thing you want cow-calf producers to remember about working with Allied Genetic Resources and that team to forward contract their cattle, what is that?
Yeah, and I would even say that this is, forward contracting is a relative term, right? It can be, I've sold cattle in June that deliver in October, and I've also sold cattle in October that deliver the next week. And so understanding that, that's a very loose term for forward contracting. But I'll just say this about our platform, and this is, and just the whole system. If you're a consumer of the Allied business, in other words, if you're using Bulls AI, or if you're using bulls from an Allied herd, or if you're using our data services, if you're using our genomics services, I would encourage you by just saying that if you work that hard, ranchers in this business work 364 days a year. And the one thing I would tell you that needs to get done, because if you work that hard all the other days of the year, my encouragement is let's put those cattle on the largest stage in the world and make sure that anybody that can buy them has the opportunity to do so, and put the people in place that can make all of that happen for you, so that all of the work you did and all of the work that we've done on your behalf doesn't go by the wayside. Because I don't want you to work 364 days a year and then tell one person about what you got done that year. I'd like you to tell the world, and I'd like to help you tell everybody that has the opportunity to buy those cattle that they're available, and I'd like to make them compete for them. So
awesome. Well, Rocky, thank you for your time today and for what you are doing for the cow-calf producer.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.